then it's much easier to pull out the removal. You know, I have like thick layers of mulch and you can just go and it comes roots and roots, you know. And then the roots are supposedly very healthy in teas and stuff, so you can utilize that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about compost tea or?
Now,
No, tea for
that's
you
one
to
method
drink.
for
Yeah.
making it out of a bottle.
Okay.
Just cut it in half like that. Fill this up with your soil.
Yeah, you can eat the part and the roots out.
Wrap it around it, little piece of tape, piece of baked up tape around the edge. And for any void that's left in there, I just take a little wad of plastic and stick it in here. This end always goes up for no particular reason. That's just the way I did it. I mean, you can turn it upside down and that's fine. And that I just put a piece of tape around there, masking, cheap masking tape, not the sticky kind, cheap masking tape, and that helps stick it to the vine. If it's taped up and sealed around there, keeps the ants from getting in. And then I stuff any void around that there with a piece of plastic and little band-aids of tape across the bottom that keeps the ants out down there, but also keeps the water in. You know, that's why I stuff the plastic. Another method of doing it is just take little scraps of plastic, and I went down to Home Depot because I got some real thin plastic. That's like half a mil, that, you know, that stuff that you just walk by and it balloons all over the place. And that is a pain to work with because just breathing on it, it goes like that, and you know, you can't do anything. And the other stuff I had was too thick and heavy. I mean, it's like wrapping a cardboard box. So I just went down and it was like $2 for a 10-foot by 20-foot or whatever at Home Depot, the cheapest little packet they had. That was thick enough, I think 2 or 3 mils, 4 mils thick, whatever it was. And got that, cut it up in little squares.
But you could use like those bags, for example, when they're empty. You could use a plastic or so, right?
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
it could be black like that, right?
Yeah,
Or
because
no?
it's going to be covered with foil anyway.
Right.
So anything you have that works.
Right, okay.
And that. And I just, you know, my bags, I always put
They're
something
full.
else in them, so I always use them to fill up with other things, so I never have enough bags, so I can't afford to cut them up.
Unless they get a hole in them or something, right?
Yeah.
It's
Duct tape.
recyclable, yeah.
But yes, but anything
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
And then is what I do is
I forgot my hat. I noticed and I was like, okay, I can turn around and be late or be hatless for a change.
The sun's popping out now. Maybe I should go get my hat.
Now
I
is
just
your
don't want to
time.
miss anything.
It's going to take a while to open the tape.
Okay.
this is shiny. Well, let's find the vine here. I just got an error there on it.
Going into the jungle, finding a grapevine. Oh,
What kind
look.
of tree is this?
Guava. Tropical.
So you guys might want to come down here and see there's some areas already in progress right here. So
Like this.
so So we are
Line it up,
putting the tape on.
fold
there.
it over. And now we got a good bag. Now, pick our spot where we're going to put it. And I like to get a spot that's laying down just because I've sprayed ant dust on these.
Maybe not. It's not. It's outside.
Tie that up on the bottom like that with a piece of tape. And then we put our soil in here.
Do you need a piece of tape or we do it?
Yeah, well, I'm going to get some more tape.
Okay.
And I'm going to get a knife to scrape the bark. And I'm going to get some hormone that we'll use just because it makes it faster, not like it's needed on a grapevine.
So if you want to go organic, you could do honey. You know, use honey as a rooting hormone. Or find willow and make like a willow tea. And that's kind of a rooting hormone too.
Cinnamon is good too.
Cinnamon?
Cinnamon is good hormonal.
Like just dry cinnamon, or do you
Just
make
dry.
a paste?
You can make a paste or dry.
Okay.
Now, he didn't cut anything? He
Not
just,
yet,
not
but
yet.
he will.
Okay.
So
And then he puts
basically,
the
he
honey?
did a square of, Patrick is not 100% organic, but I would say if you want to take one home and that's what you want, then just don't put the rooting hormone. And so then, you know, personally that's what I would do. I don't use the rooting hormones. Or I use alternative. I use the honey, or I'm just now having a willow tree which is big enough that I can start cutting it.
Willow's
Yeah.
a savior. That and sage, you know, good for a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
Can you use sage for rooting hormone as well?
No, I'm just sage. You can just very, medicinal for
Yeah.
all kinds of good
Right.
stuff.
So Patrick likes,
So with the honey, do you
His
just use
ailery.
any honey, or do you need to dilute it, or do you dip the end of your stick in it?
well, I would say make sure it's not sugar water, you know, so that it's real honey. And then depending, you know, if it's already hard, you probably have to melt it down a bit. And the only thing is, you know, honey, obviously, you need to really seal it up because ants want to come. But they like to come anyways because it's your,
Sap, huh?
yeah, it's your moist spot. And right now, ants just love, at least at my house, we just have ants everywhere.
Yeah. Trader Joe's has an all-purpose cleaner that's a cedarwood sage, and if you
make sure
spray
that
that,
the
I use
soil
that
that
inside
you
of the
mix
ants
is,
are inside, kills them right away.
Pretty moist.
Okay, so we're preparing potting soil, and this is just regular. So Patrick was saying for the grapes, it's fine to just use any kind of potting soil.
Yes, for grapes.
When we have done it before for like guavas or other ones, we use like a mixture of peat moss and perlite.
For things that I'm really, really, really concerned about, I would use a more sterile mix like perlite and peat moss.
So what designates your concern? I mean, what makes you concerned about something?
Well, it's really hard to kill a grapevine. You know, I mean, they're
Something
so,
that's harder
you know,
to propagate?
so you know, they're so easy to do.
Because they're tender, right? They're
Well, they're so durable.
durable.
You know, I mean, you can't goof them up.
My ducks ate them back to nothing.
Versus if I have something that is more valuable to me, that I really want, like a lychee or a longan or a mango or a guava or a macadamia nut, and that take much longer to do, and that to take, they take much longer. I'm going to take the extra step and expense to do something, you know, a little more positive with them, just to give you that extra edge over, because they are a little bit harder, but not much.
What about a lemon tree?
A lemon tree, I'd use whatever I got. You know, read it.
So if
lemons are pretty easy.
if you do a
Citrus.
lemon or any citrus, you have to keep it on your property and it's close by. So right now we have the citrus disease in California. So, you know, if you propagate it, I mean, the Act Department even says don't put it from your own front yard to your backyard. You know, you don't want to spread it around at all because this thing has wiped out the Florida citrus industry, and California does not want that to happen. And the backyard growers are really the one which are spreading it, you know, because the commercials are very, very careful.
We got,
This is about the moisture you want to keep your stuff at. You don't want it any wetter.
Okay,
About
so
this moisture level.
just basically forming a ball, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not really forming a ball because, you know, it's not like it's going to stick together.
Right,
because
right.
It's so fibrous.
So again, for more valuable soil, what would you use if it was a real valuable plant?
A mixture of peat moss and perlite. You know what perlite is?
Mm-hmm.
That white stuff. It's a, you know, it's actually a rock that's been heated up to like 2,800 degrees and it
And
pops
it's
like popcorn.
rock popcorn. That's what perlite is. Just don't eat it. It's not tasty. Even with butter, it doesn't taste any good.
You know, you can pop amaranth seeds into like a little popcorn.
Yeah?
They're really good.
try that next time.
So when you do amaranth, do you do them in a pan with oil?
No oil, no, and just at little tiny batches.
Okay. But you do it in a heated pan or
Yes.
something?
Yeah, just put a pan on top of the stove and heat it up, and they just pop, pop, pop.
Not in your popcorn popper.
Not in the popcorn popper. It's Barbie scale.
Then you have to eat it with pieces.
The pops are, I mean, the popcorn things are Barbie scale as well. They're tiny, tiny, but they're fun. They're tasty. And you could drizzle a little bit of honey. Yeah, there's a little bit of honey on it.
So you're bringing soil
Yes, or cotton soil.
and we have,
Can you use compost that you've made in your yard?
Depending on the quality of your compost. If it's too fine, it can be too wet and it will drown it and there not be enough oxygen. So you need something that's really airy. And that's the reason we add pumice to the peat moss. Perlite, excuse me.
perlite, yeah.
To the peat moss. I got my, anybody have a knife on them?
All right.
Girl, it's always
We
prepared.
like that.
My husband's a carpenter, so I stole his knife.
I used to, except now I like
Your husband's a carpenter.
Yeah, you were talking about union construction. That's what he does.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
good.
doing this high rise in downtown right now.
Yeah, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. You got to count them minutes.
Let me find your hand here.
Okay. Now it's not really necessary to take off the bark, because all I try to do is just scrape it a little bit.
And you're wanting the green or the core of it?
You want the brown.
Just up
You want it in the middle.
there.
You don't want the real young, tender stuff like that.
So when you're taking, so usually when you air layer, you take this part completely off to create like a barrier, but you say with a grape, it's fine to just do
Yes.
a little scratching.
I just and you can do it with your fingernails, really. I mean, a coin, anything works. It just.
But if you're like doing this for a mango or something, would you
I'll show you a totally different way for doing it on them. And thanks for mentioning that. I just use a little flux brush. You get like 100 of these in a bag down at Harbor Freight for $3. They're like 3 cents a piece.
Boy, you're full of advertisement for the big chain stores.
Well, you know, I had somebody came out here a couple of years ago from a nursery doing a bunch of air layers on my macadamia nut tree. And he was using this expensive gel that he was complaining it cost him like $60 for a little thing, not much bigger than that. And I'm watching him, you know, he had a paintbrush that was like this big. But no, it was actually I think a 3-inch paintbrush. And because that's all he had. And I said, good God.
Yeah.
You know, why don't you cut all them bristles off and delete, just. And he used up that whole thing doing like 30 air layers. Yeah, I says, wow.
Yeah.
So you just painted on the hot rooting
Yeah,
hormone?
I just put a little bit of the hormone on there, I use the powder because it's cheap and it's easy to apply. And a grapevine, you don't really even need a hormone. It will root totally on its own.
Okay, so you just I was thinking you added rooting hormone to your soil.
Oh,
No.
no.
That was just water.
Yeah, that was just water, just to keep it at a certain moisture level. Because you don't want it dry. If it's completely dry, then nothing can go in there.
Now's what we need to do
So-
is make sure that everything's going to be in here. You want to make sure you want this to be tight. For the main purpose, I want it tight, is to keep them dang on ants out. Because ants, once this thing start rooting, and it's actually easier to take a piece of tape off and do it rather than handling the roll. Now we got it back.
Can you guys see?
So you're squeezing the soil in.
Just packing it down a little bit. Let's get we have a little drop in there.
Because you don't want air, is that right?
No, I don't want big air pockets. I don't want anything that's going to be able to, dry it out. It doesn't have to be real tight. It just needs to be firm, so, that's all you got in there.
Is the more soil that you put in the bag better, or does it not matter?
Well, you kind of basically, it depends on how big the plant is. And this one here's, pretty good size. So when you go to cut it off later on,
Want some more roots, huh?
Yeah.
the more roots you have, the better.
Got it.
And the other thing to take in consideration is when you're doing it, will the plant support it without it breaking off? If you put something too heavy on a little twig, it's just going to break off.
So, do you have any olive oil and I can replace it for you? Because
Yes, I do.
forgot to bring it. And then do you usually put the date on it, or now we just
Yes, I do.
wait till?
I normally put it on there. Put it on the foil,
How long do you usually wait? Why would you put the date on it?
so you know when you're done it.
Okay. So if you have several, right? Okay. So
Yes.
yeah. So you put the date on it in about what?
A month.
A
You
month?
check it.
Okay.
About a month.
And do you check it for moisture in between, or just?
No. But in a month, you're checking it for roots and for moisture.
So you open it up and check it, and then you.
No, you
take
look at it just like that. You can tell that's moist by the color of it. You can also feel the weight of it. No. If it's dry, then you got to put water in there. You can do that with a hypodermic needle. You don't need the actual needle, but you can buy them at the feed store. Them great big old round things like for horse shots. You can buy them at the feed store for $1. Come in real handy, and for stuff like that. And just take water and give it a couple little things in there, and you're good to go again. Other than that, you got to make a hole in there, dump some water in there, tape the hole back up, and just takes it's a lot easier. Just give it a shot.
And since we're union gardeners, we're not going to do that,
Yeah.
right? We go as the
Not to
fastest
mention, when you're
method.
giving it a shot, you can always think about them guys that gave you a hard time and say, okay, here it is.
Well, couldn't you just put like a little slit in there and then pour a little oil or a little water?
Yes, you can.
But you have to cut.
And then afterwards, after you do
Put
that,
a
then you
tape.
want to tape it back
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So it's just, them extra steps that it takes.
Seems like that's fewer steps to me. Where would you put the
The high point. up here because water's going to flow down, so I put it up on the top.
Yeah. But you'd still need to seal that back up. wouldn't
Right.
you?
Yes, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Or if you just take a syringe that you can get at the feed store for $1, you don't have to do all that.
You don't have to seal it back up?
All is so small. You can, it ain't hurting anything, but I've never,
Okay. All right.
Now, if it was covered with ants on the outside that was using it as a pass-through going through there, I might put a little piece of tape on there, but other than that,
Okay.
I wouldn't.
Especially a white tape, because white, they seem to deter the ants.
Oh, yeah?
They don't like white.
Right.
So white tape will just, they will avoid white for some reason. Yeah, that's why in Mexico you see a bunch of white trees halfway. That's
I
the
said that
reason.
was for sun,
They
sun
put, it's a-
protection.
Yeah, it's a system, a white paint with cal, which